Let me begin by Secretary Salazar. Will you commit today that the reorganization process will be transparent and this committee will be provided with all the critical details?
Yes, we will absolutely be working with the committee, with members of Congress relative to legislation on the reorganization, as well as the keeping you up to date on the implementation of the new organization.
Now, the reorganization, I want to know, how will the reorganization help to prevent further future disasters?
Well, first, in terms of dealing with some of the ethical lapses, which I agree have been abhorrent in the past, and which this committee has appropriately pointed out, as well as our Inspector General in the Department of Interior, we are dividing up the agency into the different units. So the revenue functions of the what were formerly in the MMS will move over into an Office of Natural Resources Revenue. So the dollar collectors will be separated from those who are in charge of granting the leases and doing the enforcement. The rest of the agency, which Director Bromwich will oversee, will be split into a bureau that essentially manages the resource out in the outer continental shelf, both conventional as well as renewable, and another unit that essentially will be in charge of safety and enforcement. So that's the essential concepts around the reorganization, to ensure, first of all, that conflicts of interest are avoided in the future, the kinds that you have pointed out in your investigations, and second of all, that there is a kind of enforcement with respect to safety and environmental requirements.
Right. You know, the GAO and, of course, DOI, IG, have made numerous recommendations to improve royalty collection. Have you implemented any of these recommendations or up to this point?
Mr. Chairman, the answer to that is we have in major ways relative to the elimination of the royalty in kind program. We were also looking at other ways in which we can provide a more effective calculation of royalties, and have been working at putting together a program so that the American taxpayer receives the return from the royalties or from oil and gas production that the American taxpayer deserves.
Let me ask you, have you looked at the turnover process in terms of people that work for MMS, you know, moving on based on the fact that they're so poorly paid?
We, you know, the revolving door issue is one that has troubled us, and one that we are working on. You know, it is my personal view that if you have been an MMS director, that you ought not to go out and then work with the industry. But I will have Michael Bromwich, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just quickly answer that question, because it's something that we have been focused on.
Sure.
I think it's a serious issue and a serious problem. There have been historical problems in recruiting qualified inspectors, and many of the qualified inspectors do come from industry and then seem to want to go back to industry. Now, it's my view that we can do a couple of things about that. One is to create tighter rules to ensure that if people who are agency government inspectors do go back into the private sector, that at least they don't deal directly with the agency that they just left on any of the matters that they worked on, and for some period of time perhaps not deal with the agency at all. So that's one set of issues that we're in the process of addressing. I think a more fundamental issue, though, is how do you enlarge the pool of qualified inspectors? One of the things that I've begun conversations about is talking to some of the schools of engineering around the country to see if we can develop recruiting programs so that this becomes a desirable public service career path. Let's recruit the best and the brightest out of some of the petroleum engineering schools around the country, people who have no prior ties with industry, and let's make it a sustainable career path so that they're not tempted by more dollars in the private sector, but they can make a decent living serving as a qualified inspector. So I had a conversation yesterday with the dean of the School of Engineering at UC Berkeley. He said there are a number of schools of engineering deans around the country who are interested in working with us on precisely this point. So we're at the very beginning stages of this, but I'm very hopeful that we will have some robust alternatives to the back and forth revolving door system that has existed up until now.
That's very encouraging. I now yield 5 minutes to the ranking member, Congressman Issa.